is All India Radio. Namaskar, a warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective. This is Renuka and with me is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastav, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. India's fight against COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccination is a reflection of its drive, self-reliance and pride, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Relief and rescue operations in full swing in disaster-hit areas of Uttarakhand. World leaders offer condolences to victims of massive floods triggered by a glacial burst in Uttarakhand. India-US joint military exercise Yudh Abhyas 20 commences in Rajasthan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pleads not guilty to corruption charges at the district court in Jerusalem. In cricket, India needs 381 more runs to win Chennai Test against England with 9 wickets in hand. Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams off to a flying start as fans return to the stadium at the Australia Open. Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi replied to the discussion on the motion of thanks on the President's address today in Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Indian Parliament. In his address, he spoke on the new farm laws, asserting that it will usher in development of the small and marginal farmers in the country. He also spoke on India's ongoing COVID vaccination drive and India's Vaccine Maitri initiative, through which India is supplying COVID vaccines to neighbouring countries and key partners around the world. Let us listen to excerpt from the Prime Minister's address in today's Hotspot segment.
Replying today in Rajya Sabha to the discussion on the motion of thanks on the President's address, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the farm laws aim at fulfilling the aspirations of over 12 crore small and marginal farmers. Prime Minister has asserted that the new farm laws will usher in development of the small and marginal farmers in the country. Highlighting series of reforms and schemes introduced by the centre, he said the NDA government remains committed to its promise of empowering the poor and farmers.
ये बात निश्चित है, हमारी खेती को खुशहाल बनाने के लिए फैसले लेने का ये समय है, इस समय को हमने गंवा नहीं देना चाहिए. हमें आगे बढ़ना चाहिए, देश को पीछे नहीं ले जाना चाहिए. पक्ष हो, विपक्ष हो, आंदोलनरत साथी हो, इन सुधारों को हमने मौका देना चाहिए और एक बार देखना चाहिए इस परिवर्तन से हमें लाभ होता है कि नहीं होता है. कोई कमी हो तो उसको ठीक करेंगे और कहीं ढिलाई है तो उसको कसेंगे. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि सब दरवाजे बंद कर दिए बस.
Mr. Modi said that not only the NDA government but also the earlier regimes have time and again advocated for reforms in the agri sector.
आज लघु और सीमांत किसानों की मिलाएं तो 86% किसान के पास 2 हेक्टेयर से भी कम जमीन है और ऐसे किसानों की संख्या 12 करोड़ है. क्या इन 12 करोड़ किसानों के प्रति हमारी कोई जिम्मेवारी नहीं है? क्या देश की कोई जिम्मेवारी नहीं है? क्या हमने कभी हमारी योजनाओं के केंद्र में इन 12 करोड़ किसानों को रखना पड़ेगा कि नहीं रखना? ये सवाल का जवाब चौधरी चरण सिंह जी हमारे लिए छोड़ करके गए हैं. हमें जवाब को ढूंढना होगा. हमें चौधरी चरण सिंह जी को सच्ची श्रद्धांजलि देने के लिए भी इस काम के लिए जिसको जो सूझे, जिसको मौका मिले, सबने करना होगा. तब जाकर के हम कर सकते हैं.
The Prime Minister said it is natural to witness differences whenever some revolutionary reform is introduced. Referring to similar agitations when Green Revolution was implemented in the country, he thanked the undeterred belief of the former Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri, which he said led to the successful implementation of the game-changing reforms. The Prime Minister reassured everyone that minimum support price will continue and the new farm laws do not undermine the APMC mandis in any way. He added that the affordable ration scheme for the poor will also continue. He called for a united approach in order to achieve the goal of alleviating grievances of small farmers.
मैं विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि मंडियां अधिक आधुनिक बने, अधिक प्रतिस्पर्धी होगी। इस बार बजट में भी उसके लिए हमने प्रावधान किया है। इतना ही नहीं, एमएसपी है, एमएसपी था, एमएसपी रहेगा।
Speaking about the country's fight against COVID, the Prime Minister lauded everyone's efforts to make India stand out in its battle against the unknown enemy. He said the foreign investment in the country touched historic figures even when the world was reeling under the pandemic. He thanked the President for his address, which he said encompassed every aspect of the nation's gallant fight against coronavirus.
ऐसी चुनौतियों के बीच इस दशक के प्रारंभ में ही हमारे आदरणीय राष्ट्रपति जी ने जो संयुक्त सदन में अपना उद्बोधन दिया, वो अपने आप में इस चुनौतियों भरे विश्व में एक नई आशा जगाने वाला, नया उमंग पैदा करने वाला और नया आत्मविश्वास पैदा करने वाला राष्ट्रपति जी का उद्बोधन रहा। आत्मनिर्भर भारत की राह दिखाने वाला और इस दशक के लिए एक मार्ग प्रशस्त करने वाला राष्ट्रपति जी का उद्बोधन रहा। आदरणीय सभापति जी, मैं राष्ट्रपति जी का तहे दिल से आभार व्यक्त करने के लिए आज आप सबके बीच खड़ा हूं।
He said the country emerged as a pharmacy hub during the COVID phase, supplying life-saving drugs to over 150 countries.
कोरोना ने भारत को दुनिया के साथ रिश्तों में एक नई ताकत दी है। जब शुरुआत में कौन सी दवाई काम करेगी, वैक्सीन नहीं थी, तो सारा विश्व का ध्यान भारत की दवाइयों पर गया। विश्व में फार्मेसी के हब के रूप में भारत उभर करके आया। 150 देशों में दवाई पहुंचाने का काम उस संकट काल में भी इस देश ने किया है। इतना ही नहीं, इन समय वैक्सीन के संबंध में भी विश्व बड़े गर्व के साथ कहता है कि हमारे पास भारत की वैक्सीन आ गई है। हम सबको मालूम है कि दुनिया के बड़े बड़े अस्पताल में भी बड़े बड़े लोग भी जब ऑपरेशन कराने जाते हैं, कोई बड़े मेजर ऑपरेशन, और ऑपरेशन थिएटर में जाने के बाद प्रक्रिया शुरू होने के पहले उसकी आंखें ढूंढती हैं कि कोई हिंदुस्तानी डॉक्टर है कि नहीं है, और जैसे ही टीम के अंदर एक आध भी हिंदुस्तानी डॉक्टर दिखता है ना, उसका विश्वास हो जाता है अब अपने देश ने कमाया है।
He added that soon after beginning the world's largest COVID vaccination program in the country, India started supplying vaccines to other countries as well.
जिनको थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज में गिना जाता है, वो देश मानव जात के कल्याण के लिए वैक्सीन लेकर के आ जाए। इतने कम समय में मिशन मोड में हमारे वैज्ञानिक भी जुटे रहे। ये मानव जात के इतिहास में भारत के योगदान एक गौरवपूर्ण गाथा है। इसका हम गौरव करें और उसी में से नए आत्मविश्वास की प्रेरणा भी जगती है। हमने उस नए आत्मविश्वास की प्रेरणा को जगाने के ऐसे प्रयासों को आज देश गर्व कर सकता है कि दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा टीकाकरण अभियान इसी मेरे देश में चल रहा है। विश्व में तेज गति से टीकाकरण आज कहीं हो रहा है तो इसी हम सब की मां भारती के गोद में हो रहा है, और भारत का ये सामर्थ्य कहां नहीं पहुंचा है।
Quoting lines about nationalism by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he urged countrymen to take pride in Indian culture, values and ethos.
In the North Indian state of Uttarakhand, relief and rescue operations are on full swing in disaster-hit areas. The number of missing people has also gone up to 203 after many people are also reported to be missing from nearby areas. 20 bodies have been recovered so far. The information was given by Chief Minister Trivendra Singh Rawat to the media today. The state government has released 20 crore rupees for relief and rescue operations. Meanwhile, the Chief Minister reviewed disaster relief and rescue operations with senior officials in Dehradun. Union Education Minister Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank and Energy Minister R.K. Singh visited the disaster-hit areas to assess the situation. Ration and relief supplies are being transported by helicopters to the villages cut off from connectivity. The Chief Minister held a meeting with senior officers of the state government, disaster management and police, army and ITBP officials in the secretariat to review the relief and rescue operations in Joshimath area. He directed the officers that adequate food items should be available in the area. All the necessary materials should be available on time to the personnel engaged in relief and rescue operations. The Chief Minister also directed the officers that a survey of sensitive places should be done from the time to time. SDRF teams should also be deployed near sensitive locations. Director of Indian Institute of Remote Sensing, Dehradun, Dr. Prakash Chauhan, informed that the possibility of disaster is being suspected due to fresh snow ejaculation. This led to a rapid rise in the water level of the river. Now the situation is normal. 1,000 ration packets and other materials have been sent for immediate relief.
Leaders from around the world have offered condolences to the families of the victims of a glacial burst in Chamoli district of Uttarakhand that led to massive flooding in the state. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed solidarity with India over the flash floods leading to disappearance of several people. In a tweet, President Macron said their thoughts are with the people who have been affected by the glacial burst and their families. The U.S. State Department also offered condolences to the families of the victims. In a tweet, it said they grieve with the family and friends of the deceased and extend their hopes for a speedy and full recovery for the injured. Nepal's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that it is saddened by the news of death and missing of many individuals due to the flash floods in Uttarakhand. Japanese Ambassador to India Satoshi Suzuki also extended his condolences to the families of victims and prayed that those missing will be rescued as soon as possible. China today expressed condolences to the victims of the massive flood in northern Indian state of Uttarakhand. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, in response to a question, said, "We want to express our condolences to the victims and sympathy to bereaved families and injured. We hope that missing people will be rescued at an early date." The United Nations has extended help to India in the wake of massive floods triggered by a glacial burst in Uttarakhand. In a statement, the spokesperson of UN Chief Antonio Guterres said the Secretary General is deeply saddened by the reported loss of life and dozens missing following the glacier burst and subsequent flooding in Uttarakhand. Mr. Guterres expressed his deep condolences to the families of the victims and to the people and the government of India. The statement said the United Nations stands ready to contribute to the ongoing rescue and assistance efforts if necessary.
A total of over 58,12,000 people have been administered COVID-19 vaccine in the country so far. The Union Health Ministry said that more than 36,000 people have been inoculated with COVID-19 doses in the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, the country's COVID-19 recovery rate has reached 97.20% with a total recovery of more than 11,000 patients in the last 24 hours. The ministry said that more than 1 crore 5 lakh patients have already been recovered from the disease. Presently, the total number of active cases in the country is 1,48,609, which comprises only 1.37% of the total positive cases. The nationwide COVID-19 vaccination program in Bangladesh opened to a warm response across the country, with more than 31,000 people getting vaccinated on the first day of the program on Sunday. Eminent personalities, ministers, judges and high-ranking officials took the vaccine on the first day to boost public confidence in the corona vaccine in Bangladesh. According to the Directorate General of Health Services, DGHS, 31,160 people were vaccinated at 1,005 centers set up in 64 districts of the country. Till now, 4.10 lakh people have registered for the vaccine. Speaking in Dhaka on Sunday, Health Minister Zahid Malik said that it is the safest vaccine. He urged people not to pay heed to any rumors about the vaccine. Bangladesh has signed an agreement with the Serum Institute of India, SII, for the purchase of 30 million doses of the Oxford University AstraZeneca vaccine. Out of it, 5 million doses arrived in Bangladesh last month. India also gifted 2 million doses of the vaccine to Bangladesh. Bangladesh has recorded 8,205 deaths and 5.38 lakh corona-positive cases in the country till Sunday.
In Austria, schools, shops, hairdressing salons and museums are reopening after the country's third lockdown, but concerns linger about the infection rates and the spread of the new coronavirus variants. Restaurants and hotels remain closed and authorities say they don't reopen this month. The lockdown had been in place since December the 26th last year, while the government has said that Austria needs to get as close as possible to an infection level of 50 new cases per 100,000 residents over the 7 days. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates around the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Myanmar has been witnessing gradually escalating protests since the civilian government of Aung San Suu Kyi was removed by the military on 1st of February. In last 3 days, the scale and intensity of the protests has increased. Here is a report from our special correspondent in Dhaka.
The protests against the military government in Myanmar continued today. It was the 3rd consecutive day of protests in Myanmar. The protests have spread to new areas in the country. Protests are taking place from Yangon to Karen State, from the coastal city of Dawei in Taninthari region to Kachin state capital Myitkyina, among others. Today, the number of anti-government protesters was much bigger than the numbers on Sunday. People across Myanmar are demanding removal of the military government and release of detained leaders, including Aung San Suu Kyi. In the largest city of the country, Yangon, saffron-robed monks marched with workers and students to protest against the military rule. The protests are reported to be the biggest since the Saffron Revolution of 2007, led by the Buddhist monks. Apart from the monks, students, nurses and doctors, teachers and government employees at some places have also been taking part in the protests as part of civil disobedience movement against the military government. Police used water cannons to disperse the protesters at the capital city of Naypyidaw. But there have been no clashes or violent incidents in the country till now. Rajesh Jha, Dhaka.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pleaded not guilty on Monday as his trial on corruption charges resumed. Israel is heading into the national elections in a few weeks and Mr. Netanyahu is seeking re-election. The 71-year-old leader officially entered his plea to charges of fraud, breach of trust and accepting bribes in 3 corruption cases. One of the cases against him alleges that the Prime Minister granted regulatory approval worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the owner of the Bezek telecom company in exchange for positive coverage on its Wala news site. The India-US joint military exercise Yudh Abhyas commenced today at Mahajan Field firing ranges in Rajasthan with unfurling of the national flags of both the countries. Our correspondent reports that the 14-day schedule is focused upon joint training on counter-insurgency and terrorism environment under the United Nations mandate.
A number of aerial platforms, including newly inducted indigenous advanced light helicopter WSI Rudra, Mi-17, Chinook Striker vehicles of US Army and BMP-2 mechanized infantry combat vehicles of Indian Army will be utilized in the exercise. The exercise will enrich both the countries from each other's rich experience in counter-insurgency operations. Exchange of experiences in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief will also be a part of the exercise. The exercise is one of the largest military training and defense cooperation efforts between India and the United States. This exercise is another step towards growing military cooperation between the two countries, which shows the growth in Indo-US ties. Jitendra Dwivedi for World News, All India Radio, Jaipur.
US President Joe Biden has said that he will not lift sanctions against Iran until it complies with the terms agreed under a 2015 nuclear deal and stops enriching uranium beyond the limits of the deal. Yesterday, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that the United States must lift all the sanctions before Tehran reverses any nuclear production steps. He said if they want Iran to return to its Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action JCPOA commitments, the US should lift all the sanctions in action. The Trump administration reimposed sanctions on Iran in 2018 after pulling the United States out of the international accord aimed at curtailing Tehran's nuclear program. Iran, which says its nuclear program is peaceful, has been increasing its stockpile of enriched uranium. Enriched uranium can be used to make reactor fuel, but also nuclear bombs.
Former U.S. Secretary of State George Shultz, who significantly shaped foreign policy in the late 20th century, has died at the age of 100. He passed away on Saturday at his home in California. He served 3 former presidents, Dwight Eisenhower, Richard Nixon, and Ronald Reagan in various roles. His efforts as America's top diplomat from 1982 to 1989 under the former President Ronald Reagan helped lead to the conclusion of the 4-decade-long Cold War that began after World War II. This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
In eastern Ladakh, in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the lesser-known Tibetan village of Dungti is electrified now. Here is a report from our correspondent.
In 1962, Tibetan families migrated to Ladakh and settled in Dungti to form a Tibetan refugee village of Ladakh. The only livelihood of these people is to sell pashmina. The village till date had no electricity and they used to live in darkness. The night of 4th of February changed their lives. Their lives as well as the villages were lit up. A local GHE team of engineers took 3 days in the freezing temperature of minus 25 degrees to bring life and hope to 51,000 households of this Tibetan village. Global Himalayan expedition that has electrified more than 100 hamlets in Ladakh for over 8 years brought solar-based DC electricity to the village of Dungti through the help of their CSR supporters. Every house received a solar nano grid with 3 LED lights and 2 LED batons along with a USB charging facility. 10 solar LED street lights were also set up to light up the entire village. Diksha Saxena for World News.
The handloom in India's northeast region has played an important role in not only economic development but also cultural expression. This sector has a pride of being the country's second largest prologue employment provider, being only next to agriculture. Here is a report from Mizoram, which has recently organized a handloom expo. With more of the details, our correspondent from Aiswal reports.
Handloom weaving is an integral part of life and culture of Mizo communities. In general, most of the Mizo families have an age-old practice of weaving their own clothes, especially the traditional apparel. This very popular apparel is known as puan, and it has forms varying with men and women and on different occasions. In contemporary days, these handloom clothes are coming up with more kinds of apparel and fusion of traditional and modern designs. Due to its rich cultural importance in the society, expo and events catering handloom weaving carry a special attraction to the Mizo people. Naturally, the National Handloom Expo, organized annually, draws huge people in displaying, selling and buying of handloom pieces. This time, it was organized in the 3rd week of last month. An official from Zohan Co., Silal Monpui, informed that total of 40 stalls were put up in the expo, wherein more than 100 weavers from the state displayed and sold their handloom products. This time, the theme of the expo was Buy Local and Support Local, with a direction towards building the Atmanirbhar Bharat.
This expo is organized by Mizoram Handloom and Handicraft Development Corporation Limited, Zohenco, under the funding of National Handloom Development Program. Weavers and handicraft artisans across Mizoram and 1 handloom weavers from Northeast are eligible to participate.
Due to COVID-19 pandemic, this expo could not be held in 2020. This year also, people from Northeast state could not participate. The theme for this year National Handloom Expo is Buy Local, Support Local Economy.
For promotion of Mizo Handloom, we first need to work on development of production and design to meet a requirement of international market or to produce export quality.
On the occasion, the Commerce and Industries Minister, Dr. Alal Thangliana, lamented that the handloom sector was badly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. He said that there were hardly any sales by the weavers in the last 10 months, which has certainly an adverse effect on the weavers' families and the state economy as well. Against this backdrop, the Industries Minister advised the weavers not to lose heart, rather to remain focused on their work since the pandemic situation has been improving in the last 2-3 months. He also expressed hope this year will bring a better situation for all weavers and artisans. Referring to the fact that this sector contributes large to the state economy, Dr. Lal Thanglian appealed to the creative persons engaged in handloom work towards increasing their product range and upscaling design so that their products find a market beyond the states. Irene from Aizol.
Now we bring you the trends in the global markets for today.
The Sensex climbed 617 points or 1.22% to finish at 51,349. The NSE Nifty also surged 192 points or 1.28% to end at 15,116. The broader market at BSE also gained, outperforming the Sensex. The BSE Mid-Cap Index rose 1.5% and the BSE Small Cap Index appreciated 1.53%. In global equity market, Asian and European stocks rose, echoing the rally in US stocks in the previous session amid growing optimism over the global economic recovery. Japan's benchmark index reached 3 decades highs, logging gains of more than 2%. In bullion market, Brent crude prices rose to trade around $60.10 per barrel, while WTI crude prices were around $57.60 per barrel. And in the forex market, the rupee appreciated 4 paisa to 72 rupees and 97 paisa against the US dollar. Anubha Rohadgi for World News, All India Radio.
And now moving on to sports and cricket, chasing a target of 420 runs set by England, India were 39 for 1 in their second innings at stumps on the 4th day of the first test match at the M.A. Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai. Team India needs 381 more runs to win the test on a square Turner track on the 5th and the final day tomorrow. In the Australian Open, Serena Williams made the perfect start to her campaign with the victory over Sigmund 6-1, 6-1. Elsewhere, Novak Djokovic beat France's Jeremy Chardy in straight sets. The Serbian superstar expressed delight at having returned to a relatively packed Rod Laver arena.
Great to see you back on the stadium. Makes my heart full to see the crowd in the stadium again. I mean, you know, it's one of those things that we hope it's going to pass very soon, and it's these kind of circumstances in the world are only temporary. And you know, I'm really glad to see a lot of people. Actually, this is the most people I've seen on the tennis court in 12 months. So
it is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
In Sunday's matches, Premier League ties, Liverpool were defeated 4-1 by a visiting Manchester City side. Chelsea beat Sheffield United 2-1. Meanwhile, Barcelona beat Real Betis 3-2 in the Spanish La Liga. And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. New York Times reports that New York City will reopen its public middle schools which have been closed since November. The city does not yet have a plan to reopen the high schools. UK-based The Guardian writes South Africa scrambles for new COVID strategy after reports that AstraZeneca vaccine may only have 10% efficacy against the new variant. The South China Morning Post reports that Hong Kong legal groups deny city is losing its standing as global arbitration hub. The Dubai-based Khalij Times reports that Sheikh Mohammed said that the nation will celebrate 50 years of UAE by reaching Mars as UAE's Hope probe is set to reach the Red Planet. And Manila Bulletin reports that President of Philippines backed uniform travel requirements proposal in local destinations to boost the country's tourism industry.
A quick look at the headlines once again. India's fight against COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccination is a reflection of its drive, self-reliance and pride, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Relief and rescue operations in full swing in disaster-hit areas of Uttarakhand. World leaders offer condolences to victims of massive floods triggered by a glacial burst in Uttarakhand. India-US joint military exercise Yudh Abhyas 20 commences in Rajasthan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pleads not guilty to corruption charges at the district court in Jerusalem. In cricket, India needs 381 more runs to win Chennai Test against England with 9 wickets in hand. Novak Djokovic and Serena Williams off to a flying start as fans return to the stadium at the Australian Open. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnavajan, by artists from the UAE.
Vaishnavajan
And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.